Is Congress really about to send $7,200 emergency payments to low-income seniors? Or is this just another empty promise? And wait until you hear Jasmine Crockett's unfiltered response to this new bill. It's not what anyone expected. All right, let's dive straight into it. Because this story has been blowing up all over social media, news headlines, and especially in online communities where seniors and disability advocates hang out. The idea of $7,200 emergency payments, let's be honest, that kind of money would be life-changing for millions of Americans right now. So here's exactly what we're covering in this video. First, where did this $7,200 number even come from? Then, what's actually in this new bill? Who's behind it? What would it take for this to become real? And of course, what did Jasmine Crockett have to say when asked about it? Because let me tell you right now, her reaction definitely shook the room. But stick with me, because there's a twist to this story that nobody's talking about yet. And it's going to leave you with a lot of questions about what's really going on in Washington. Let's rewind. A few weeks ago, a group of lawmakers introduced something they're calling the Emergency Senior Support Act. Sounds fancy, right? The headline figure? A one-time payment of $7,200 to low-income seniors, specifically those receiving supplemental security income, Social Security disability insurance, and people on limited Social Security retirement benefits who fall below a certain income level. Why $7,200? That's what everyone wants to know. The lawmakers behind this bill are saying that $7,200 represents the approximate amount that low-income seniors have lost, adjusted for inflation, over the past 3 years, when you compare Social Security's COLA increases to actual cost of living increases. In other words, they're saying Social Security hasn't kept up with real inflation, and seniors have been left in the dust financially. The goal? A one-time emergency adjustment to help seniors catch up. Sounds good on paper, right? But as you probably guessed, it's not that simple. For starters, the bill is still in its early stages. It hasn't passed the House, it hasn't passed the Senate, and there's no guarantee it'll even make it to a full-floor vote. Right now, it's sitting in committee, where it'll be debated, amended, and, let's be real, probably watered down. But despite all that, the buzz about this bill has taken on a life of its own. News outlets started running flashy headlines. Social media influencers started posting clickbait titles like $7,200 checks coming next month. And people everywhere, especially seniors, started hoping that maybe, just maybe, help was finally on the way. And then came Jasmine Crockett. Now, if you've been following her at all, you know Jasmine doesn't pull any punches. She's made a name for herself by being blunt, brutally honest, and not afraid to call out her own colleagues. When reporters asked her about this $7,200 emergency payment bill, she didn't waste a second sugarcoating her response. Her words? This is a distraction. Seniors don't need another political headline. They need real, permanent solutions.
Ouch! But wait, there's more.
She went on to explain that while she fully supports giving low-income seniors more financial help, she doesn't believe throwing one-time checks at the problem is the answer. She pointed out that Social Security's entire payment structure is outdated, broken, and completely out of step with today's cost of living. In her words, you can't fix a sinking ship by tossing people life jackets every 6 months. You need to patch the holes. And honestly, a lot of people agree with her. Let's pause for a second and break down exactly what Jasmine Crockett meant by that. Right now, Social Security benefits are calculated based on formulas that haven't been meaningfully updated in decades. COLA increases are based on the Consumer Price Index for urban wage earners and clerical workers, not seniors, which means they're tracking the wrong inflation numbers. Housing, healthcare, prescription drugs, these are the biggest expenses for seniors, but they're barely weighted in the COLA calculation. So what happens? Seniors get tiny increases each year that don't actually match the real price increases they're seeing in their daily lives. That's the core of Jasmine Crockett's argument. She's basically saying, sure, a $7,200 check sounds great today, but what about next year and the year after that? Are we just going to keep playing this emergency payment game every time election season rolls around? And that brings us to the politics behind this bill.
Let's talk timing.
Why did this bill pop up now? Simple. It's an election year. Lawmakers know that seniors vote in huge numbers, more than any other demographic. And what better way to score points than by promising a big check right before people head to the polls? But here's the kicker. Most insiders are saying this bill has almost zero chance of passing in its current form. It's expensive, it's controversial, and it doesn't have bipartisan support. In fact, during a recent hearing, several lawmakers raised concerns about the cost. One senator said, "We can't just throw $7,200 at people without knowing how we're going to pay for it." Another called it fiscally irresponsible, arguing that adding billions to the deficit would just create more problems down the road. And while Jasmine Crockett is a Democrat and technically on the same side as the bill's sponsors, she's breaking ranks on this one. So what does she want instead? That's the interesting part. In a follow-up interview, she outlined her priorities for real senior relief. First, she wants Social Security benefit formulas updated to reflect current living costs. Second, she's pushing for a higher baseline benefit level for all low-income seniors, not just those on SSI and SSDI. Third, she wants stronger protections against benefit reductions caused by outside income, like working a part-time job or receiving small financial gifts. And fourth, she's fighting for expanded Medicare benefits, especially when it comes to dental, vision, and hearing coverage. According to her, these kinds of structural reforms would provide lasting help instead of temporary fixes. But of course, real reform takes time. And let's be honest, time isn't something a lot of struggling seniors feel like they have right now. So, where does that leave us today? Well, here's what you need to know. The $7,200 emergency payment bill exists. That part is true. It's been introduced. It's making waves. But it hasn't passed. It hasn't even cleared its first major hurdle. Jasmine Crockett's response? She's skeptical. She's pushing for bigger, longer-term solutions. Will this bill ever become law? Honestly, the odds aren't great, at least not in its current form. But here's what could happen next. Lawmakers may strip it down. Maybe instead of $7,200, they approve a smaller payment, like $1,200 or $2,000. Or they might roll it into a larger spending package to make it more politically acceptable. Or it could die in committee, like dozens of other well-intentioned but underfunded bills before it. One thing is clear, though. This conversation is far from over. Because whether it's $7,200, $1,200, or no payment at all, the pressure is building for Congress to do something for low-income seniors. And voices like Jasmine Crockett's are making it impossible to ignore the bigger, long-term issues anymore. So what should you do right now? First, don't fall for scams. If anyone tells you to sign up for this $7,200 payment by clicking a sketchy link or giving away your Social Security number, run fast. Second, stay informed. Watch for updates from the Social Security Administration and official government websites. And third, keep your expectations realistic. This bill still has a long, rocky road ahead before anything hits your bank account. All right, that's the full breakdown on the $7,200 emergency payments and Jasmine Crockett's big response. If you want to know which other Social Security changes are brewing behind the scenes, click on the next video popping up right now.